He scoffed at the methods, the pathetic ploys, the weak prey. This was not hunting, this was not sport, this was a disgrace to the name of predator. He was different. He craved a challenge, a worthy adversary. He sought the ultimate game. He studied their patterns, these other so-called predators, the easy targets, the helpless victims. He felt only contempt. Where was the thrill in that? Where was the satisfaction in breaking something already broken? He wanted strength. He desired resilience. He longed to test himself against the very best. Only then, he believed, could he truly call himself the ultimate predator. His mind buzzed with a dark excitement. He would create the ultimate hunting ground, a place where the strong were lured to their demise, a place where he would become the apex predator. He imagined their terror, the fear in their eyes. It fueled him, it excited him, but it wasn't enough. He wanted more than just fear. He wanted them to fight back, to push him to his limits. The thought of a true challenge, a battle of wills and strength, sent a shiver down his spine. This was the essence of the hunt, the pursuit of the ultimate prize. The thrill of facing an opponent who refused to yield. He envisioned their muscles, taut with exertion, their eyes burning with the will to survive. He craved the clash of titans, the dance of life and death. This was the true measure of a predator. He would become a force of nature, an unstoppable force. He would push them to the brink and beyond, and in their defeat he would find his own strength. The homeless, the addicted, the lost, they held no appeal for him. They were already broken, defeated by life itself. Where was the challenge in that? Where was the glory in extinguishing a flame already flickering in the wind? He scoffed at the idea of preying on the vulnerable. It was the mark of a coward, a scavenger picking at the edges of existence. He sought those who thrived at the peak of human potential, those who had tasted victory and knew the sting of defeat. He wanted to break them, to shatter their confidence, their strength, their very essence, to prove that even the mightiest could fall, to demonstrate his dominance over the human spirit. He yearned for the hunt to be a true test of his abilities. Anything less was simply unworthy of his time, his effort, his unique brand of predatory instinct. The island materialized from the mist, a shroud of secrecy clinging to its shores. It was perfect, isolated, untouched, a blank canvas for his deadly masterpiece. Here he would create a haven for the strong, a sanctuary that was anything but. He purchased it under an alias, of course, a wealthy recluse, passionate about conservation, seeking to create a private reserve. The irony was not lost on him. He was indeed conserving something precious, the thrill of the hunt. He envisioned dense forests, treacherous cliffs, hidden ravines. The island would be his labyrinth, a playground where the hunted would become the prey. He would learn its secrets, master its terrain, become one with its untamed heart, and then he would invite them, the strong, the powerful, the ones who thought they had nothing to fear. He would lure them to his island paradise and unleash his own brand of hell. He devoured criminal profiles, psychological evaluations, forensic reports. Each one fueled his disdain for the mundane, the predictable nature of their crimes. They sought out the vulnerable, he concluded, not out of necessity, but out of a twisted sense of self-preservation. These predators, he mused, were nothing more than scavengers, feasting on the scraps of society. They targeted the weak because they themselves were weak. Incapable of confronting a true challenge, they sought victims who mirrored their own inadequacies. The thought disgusted him. He would not stoop to such a level. He would not find satisfaction in breaking a bird with a broken wing. He craved resistance, a fight to the finish, a test of both predator and prey. He tossed aside a file detailing the pathetic methods of a serial killer who preyed on prostitutes. It was an insult to the very essence of the hunt. He sought the thrill of the chase, the exhilaration of facing an opponent worthy of his steel. His mind wandered to the animal kingdom, to the lions on the savannah, the wolves in the forest. They did not target the weak or the infirm. They sought out the strongest, the fastest, the most cunning. Only then could they claim the mantle of apex predator. He saw a reflection of himself in these creatures, a primal instinct to test his mettle against the best, to prove his dominance not through brute force alone, but through strategy, cunning, and an unwavering will to succeed. The allure of the alpha was not just about physical strength, but about mental fortitude, about the ability to outwit, outmaneuver, and ultimately to conquer. He envisioned himself as the lion, the undisputed king of his domain, surveying his territory with a cold, calculating gaze, and on this island he would create a kingdom of his own. He scoffed at the notion of morality, of right and wrong. These were constructs of a society that had grown soft, that had lost its connection to the primal instincts that governed the natural world. He was not bound by such constraints. He saw himself as a force of nature, a hurricane, an earthquake, an unstoppable force that reshaped the landscape. He was both creator and destroyer, judge and executioner, and on his island his word was law. There was a certain beauty, he thought, in the purity of his purpose. He sought no reward, no recognition, no material gain. His only motivation was the hunt itself, the pursuit of the ultimate challenge. He was both judge and jury, and his victims, the unfortunate souls who stumbled into his web, would be judged not by the laws of man, but by the laws of nature. Survival of the fittest. He meticulously researched potential victims, scouring athletic journals, martial arts forums, and underground fighting circuits. He studied their physiques, their training regimens, their fighting styles. He was searching for the perfect specimen, the ultimate challenge. He dismissed bodybuilders with their chemically enhanced physiques. They were nothing more than inflated egos with no real combat experience. He craved raw talent, natural ability honed through years of dedicated training, the kind of strength that came from within. He yearned for an opponent who would test his limits, who would push him to the brink of exhaustion, who would force him to dig deep and unleash the full extent of his own predatory instincts. He imagined the thrill of the chase, the adrenaline surge of a life-or-death struggle, the satisfaction of emerging victorious against a worthy adversary. He was building to something extraordinary, a symphony of violence and skill, a testament to his own predatory prowess. He envisioned the island as a giant game board, a macabre playground where he would orchestrate the ultimate test of survival. He would design unique challenges for each victim, tailored to their specific skills and weaknesses, pushing them to the very limits of their physical and mental endurance. He would become the architect of their demise, manipulating the environment, exploiting their weaknesses, turning their strengths against them. He would be both hunter and hunted, playing a deadly game of cat and mouse in the wilderness. Each hunt would be a work of art, a macabre masterpiece designed to showcase his own dominance, his mastery of the hunt, his superiority over even the most formidable of prey. And as he surveyed his creation, a chill ran down his spine, a mixture of anticipation and excitement. The game was afoot, and the island awaited its first players. The island slumbered, shrouded in mist and silence, a sleeping giant oblivious to the dark intentions brewing within its heart. But beneath the tranquility, a transformation was taking place, orchestrated by unseen hands. The island was awakening. He worked tirelessly, his every move driven by a singular purpose, a vision of what this sanctuary would become. The dense forest, once a haven for wildlife, was now his to mould, to shape into a labyrinth of fear and despair. Trails were cleared, false paths created, the very landscape manipulated to serve his deadly game. He erected structures, blending seamlessly with the natural surroundings, each one designed for a specific purpose. Observation points disguised as ancient ruins, caves transformed into makeshift holding cells. The island was becoming an intricate web, and he, the spider, patiently waiting at its centre. With each passing day, the island shed its innocence, its serenity replaced with an undercurrent of menace. The air itself seemed to crackle with anticipation, the silence broken only by the sounds of his labour, the echoes of a predator preparing for the ultimate hunt. He moved through the dense undergrowth, his boots sinking into the damp earth, his senses heightened, attuned to every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig. He was no longer merely a man on an island. He was the island itself, its spirit flowing through him, its secrets whispered on the wind. The forest floor, once a random tapestry of fallen leaves and decaying wood, was now a canvas for his twisted artistry. He planted clues, false trails and diversions, each one designed to lead his prey astray, to test their instincts, to break their spirit. Hidden cameras strategically placed would capture their every move, their growing fear, their desperate struggle for survival. He would watch unseen, relishing in their torment, his own senses heightened by the knowledge that he was the author of their fate. The island was no longer a sanctuary, but a labyrinth of death, and he, the Minotaur at its heart, patiently waiting for his victims to lose their way. The helicopter descended from the overcast sky, a mechanical dragonfly alighting on the helipad he had meticulously constructed from local timber and imported concrete. He watched from the shadows, his heart quickening with a primal thrill as the first player in his deadly game stepped onto the island. The man was everything he had hoped for, a renowned mountaineer, his physique honed from years of battling unforgiving peaks. He exuded an aura of confidence, of invincibility, a man accustomed to conquering nature's challenges. But he had never faced a challenge like this. He had chosen this man first for a reason. He represented the pinnacle of human endurance, the ability to withstand pain, to persevere against insurmountable odds. He would be the ultimate test, the benchmark against which all future prey would be measured. As the helicopter lifted back into the sky, leaving the man alone on the island, a cold smile played across his lips. The game had begun. The mountaineer's invitation had been deceptively simple, a weekend retreat for adventure enthusiasts, an opportunity to test themselves against the untamed beauty of the island. He had spared no expense, ensuring that every detail, from the personalized gear to the gourmet meals, reinforced the illusion of luxury and exclusivity. But the true challenge lay hidden beneath the surface, woven into the very fabric of the island itself. The trails, while seemingly natural, were designed to test his endurance, leading him on grueling climbs, treacherous descents, and through dense, disorienting undergrowth. He had strategically placed obstacles, both natural and man-made, each one designed to push the mountaineer to his physical and mental limits. Hidden pitfalls, camouflaged tripwires, and even strategically released wildlife would test his reflexes, his stamina, his very will to survive. He had created a gauntlet, a relentless test of human endurance, and the mountaineer, though he didn't yet realize it, was merely a pawn in his twisted game. Deep within the island's interior, hidden amongst a labyrinth of caves and tunnels, lay his sanctuary, his command center, the heart of his operation. The air hung heavy with the musk of damp earth and the faint scent of decay, a stark contrast to the pristine wilderness above. Here, surrounded by banks of monitors displaying live feeds from the island's hidden cameras, he became a god, observing, manipulating, controlling every aspect of his creation. He watched the mountaineer's progress, his breath growing ragged, his movements slowing, the first beads of fear forming on his brow. The walls were adorned with maps, charts, and photographs, a testament to his meticulous planning, his obsessive need to control every variable. He had studied the human body, its limits, its vulnerabilities, and he knew exactly how much pressure to apply, how far to push his prey before they broke. This was his domain, his kingdom, a testament to his dark genius, and within its depths he felt a surge of power, the exhilaration of a predator about to strike. As the sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the island, the mountaineer stumbled into a clearing, his body battered, his spirit broken. He had endured the relentless assault on his senses, the constant fear gnawing at his resolve, but the island had taken its toll. He collapsed at the base of a towering waterfall, the roar of cascading water a deafening reminder of his isolation. He had found no signs of civilization, no other human presence, only the ever-present feeling of being watched, hunted, stalked. Suddenly a movement in the shadows caught his eye, a fleeting glimpse of something dark, something menacing, something that vanished as quickly as it had appeared. Was it real, or just a figment of his exhausted mind? A cold wind swept through the clearing, carrying with it the faintest of whispers, a chilling message that seemed to emanate from the island itself. "You are not alone." He allowed the mountaineer his moment of respite, a brief reprieve before the true test began. He observed him through the cameras, noting the tremors in his hands, the flicker of fear in his eyes. Yes, the prey was weakening, his spirit beginning to crack under the relentless pressure. This was the part he enjoyed the most, the slow, methodical erosion of their confidence, their sense of self. He had no need for brute force, not yet. The island itself was his weapon, a crucible in which their weaknesses would be laid bare. He had anticipated the mountaineer's every move, mapped out his descent into despair. The lack of food, the disorientation, the carefully orchestrated encounters with the island's more predatory inhabitants, all designed to push him to the brink. He watched, waited, savouring the anticipation. The hunt was far from over. It had merely entered a new, more insidious phase. Days blurred into nights. Time lost all meaning as the mountaineer succumbed to the island's relentless assault. Hunger gnawed at his belly, thirst parched his throat. Sleep, when it came, was filled with unsettling dreams and the ever-present feeling of being watched. He had explored every inch of the clearing, searching for an escape route, a sign of civilization, anything to break the oppressive solitude. But the forest remained an impenetrable wall, the sea an endless expanse of churning grey. He had rationed his supplies, clinging to the hope of rescue, but that hope was fading with each passing hour. He had faced death before on icy peaks and treacherous slopes, but this was different. This was a slow, torturous descent into madness. He was a man accustomed to conquering challenges, but this challenge was breaking him, stripping him bare, revealing the raw, primal fear that lurked beneath his veneer of strength. He found the mountaineer huddled in the shadow of the waterfall, his body racked with sobs. The once proud adventurer, the conqueror of mountains, had been reduced to a whimpering shell. The transformation was complete. He had anticipated this breakdown, had even factored it into his calculations. Despair, he believed, was a powerful motivator, a crucible in which the true nature of a man was revealed, and this man, for all his strength, was no different from the rest. He stepped out from behind a towering fig tree, his presence announced by the snapping of a twig. The mountaineer looked up, his eyes wide with a mixture of terror and relief. Terror at the sight of his tormentor, relief at the prospect of an end to his ordeal. "It's over," he said, his voice a low, guttural growl. "It's time to finish this." The fight was brief, brutal, and utterly one-sided. The mountaineer, weakened by hunger and despair, was no match for his strength. But even in defeat there was a flicker of defiance in his eyes, a refusal to yield without a fight. He respected that. This man, despite his fear, had clung to his spirit, his will to survive. He had proven himself a worthy adversary, if only for a short time, and in that moment, as he looked down at the broken body at his feet, he felt a surge of something akin to regret, but it was a fleeting emotion, quickly suppressed. He had a purpose, a mission. The mountaineer had served his purpose, had provided a valuable data point in his ongoing experiment, and now it was time to move on to the next challenge. He dragged the body deeper into the forest, concealing it amongst the dense undergrowth. The island would reclaim its own, erasing all evidence of his presence, and the game would continue. Section 5. The Invitation. He sat in his dimly lit lair, the air thick with the smell of stale coffee and his own musky scent. The monitors flickered with images of the island, its lush vegetation now a sinister backdrop to his macabre game. The mountaineer's file lay open on the desk before him, his notes scrawled in a tight, precise hand. The next challenge, he had decided, would be different. He had tested endurance, the limits of the human spirit. Now he craved something more visceral, more primal. He wanted to pit his strength against another apex predator, to prove his dominance in the most elemental of ways. His gaze fell on a photograph pinned to the wall, a man with the physique of a Greek god, his fists raised in victory. The reigning world heavyweight boxing champion, undefeated, unstoppable. A worthy opponent, he thought, a challenge befitting his growing ambition. He picked up a pen, his fingers tracing the outline of the boxer's muscular frame. An idea was forming, a plan as audacious as it was dangerous. He would lure this champion to his island, isolate him, break him, and ultimately claim his ultimate prize. Section 6. The Champion's Arrival. The roar of the helicopter echoed across the island, shattering the stillness like a thunderclap. He watched from the shadows, his heart pounding with anticipation as the aircraft settled down on the helipad. The game was afoot. The boxer emerged from the helicopter, a vision of power and confidence. His entourage trailed behind him, a gaggle of handlers, publicists, and hangers-on, oblivious to the danger that awaited them. He had chosen this moment carefully, using a charity event as a cover, offering an irresistible opportunity for a private getaway on an exclusive island paradise. The champion, he had learned, was a man of simple pleasures, good food, good company, and the thrill of the hunt. He had catered to these desires, creating a facade of luxury and relaxation, a gilded cage designed to lull his prey into a false sense of security. He watched as the boxer and his entourage disappeared into the waiting jeeps. Their laughter carried on the breeze. The hunt had begun, and this time the stakes were higher than ever before. Section 1. The Cage Beast. He watched the boxer on the monitors, his movements fluid, his laughter echoing through the surveillance speakers. A caged beast, he thought, reveling in the illusion of freedom. The champion had taken to the island with gusto, enjoying the lavish amenities, the gourmet meals, the camaraderie of his companions, unaware that each indulgence brought him closer to the heart of the trap. He had anticipated this. The boxer was a creature of instinct, driven by competition, by the need to test his limits. He had carefully crafted this illusion of paradise, allowing the boxer to indulge his every whim, to satiate his appetites, all the while subtly manipulating his environment, herding him towards the inevitable confrontation. He noted the way the boxer's eyes scanned the horizon, the subtle shift in his demeanor when he thought himself unobserved. The predator within, he knew, still lurked beneath the surface, waiting to be unleashed. Soon, he thought, very soon, the cage door would swing open and the true nature of the game would be revealed. He could barely contain his excitement. This hunt, he knew, would be one for the ages. He had engineered the first encounter with meticulous precision, a seemingly chance meeting during a morning jog. He had allowed the boxer to catch a glimpse of him disappearing into the dense undergrowth, a fleeting shadow that sparked a primal curiosity within the champion's soul. The boxer, unable to resist the allure of the unknown, had excused himself from his companions, venturing deeper into the forest, his instincts guiding him, drawing him ever closer to the heart of the labyrinth. He watched the boxer's progress on the monitors, his breath catching in his throat as the distance between them closed. This was the moment he lived for, the thrill of the chase, the knowledge that he was not the only predator on the island. The forest itself seemed to hold its breath, the air thick with anticipation, the rustling of leaves and the cries of unseen creatures, the only soundtrack to their deadly dance. This was no longer a game. This was a primal struggle for dominance, and only one of them would walk out of the forest alive. He moved through the undergrowth with the stealth of a panther, his senses heightened, his every movement a calculated response to the boxer's pursuit. He had studied the boxer's fighting style, his strengths, his weaknesses, and he knew that a direct confrontation would be foolhardy. This was not a boxing ring, this was his domain. He led the boxer on a merry chase, leaving false trails, doubling back on his tracks, using the terrain to his advantage. He watched the boxer's frustration grow, his movements becoming more frantic, his breath growing ragged as the hours turned into a day, then another. He allowed the boxer glimpses of him, fleeting shadows that vanished into the dense foliage, whispers of his presence that played on the edge of the boxer's senses. He was weaving a tapestry of fear, a psychological web designed to break the boxer's spirit before the final confrontation. He was the hunter, and the boxer, for all his strength, was now the hunted. The roles had been reversed, and the balance of power was shifting with each passing hour. The confrontation, when it finally came, was almost anticlimactic. He had herded the boxer to a narrow ravine, a dead end from which there was no escape. The boxer, exhausted, his face grimy with sweat and dirt, stood panting in the dappled sunlight that filtered through the dense canopy above. He emerged from the shadows, his presence no longer a secret, his eyes locking with the boxer's in a silent battle of wills. The boxer, to his credit, showed no fear, only a weary resignation, as if he had known all along that this moment was inevitable. "Why?" the boxer rasped, his voice hoarse from days of shouting into the void. "Why are you doing this?" The question hung in the air, a challenge in itself. He had not expected this flicker of humanity from his prey. He had always viewed his victims as objects, obstacles to be overcome. But the boxer's question, so simple, so direct, forced him to confront the darkness that dwelled within his own heart. He stared at the boxer, his mind racing. Why? He had never considered the question before. It was the thrill of the hunt, the need to prove himself, to test his limits against the strongest, the most worthy adversary. But as he looked at the boxer, he realized that those reasons felt hollow, insufficient. The boxer, sensing his hesitation, took a step forward, his eyes never leaving his. "You wanted a challenge," he said, his voice gaining strength. "Here I am." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a pair of worn leather boxing gloves, tossing them at the killer's feet. He stared down at the gloves, a symbol of the boxer's world, a world of rules and honor, a world he had left behind long ago. He looked up at the boxer, his eyes narrowed, a flicker of something akin to respect stirring within him. The boxer's challenge, so unexpected, so audacious, resonated within him. This was not the weak prey he had encountered before. This was a warrior offering him a chance to confront his demons on his own terms. He bent down and picked up the gloves, their worn leather rough against his skin. He had not worn gloves in years, preferring the raw brutality of bare-knuckle combat, but there was something about the weight of the gloves, the history they represented, that gave him pause. He looked at the boxer, a silent question passing between them. The boxer nodded. A slow, deliberate movement. This was no longer a hunt, no longer a game of predator and prey. This was something different, something primal, a ritualistic combat, a dance of death between two warriors stripped bare of everything but their will to survive. The air crackled with tension, the silence broken only by the sound of their ragged breathing, the distant cries of birds and the rustling of leaves in the slight breeze. The silence stretched, a palpable entity, the calm before the storm. And in that moment, as he tightened the gloves around his fists, he knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The ravine bore witness to a dance of brutality. Two predators, stripped of pretense, locked in a primal struggle for dominance. The air, thick with the stench of sweat and blood, crackled with the energy of their desperate struggle, each blow a testament to their strength, their will to survive. He had underestimated the boxer. The champion's spirit, tempered in the crucible of countless fights, burned brighter than he could have imagined. Each punch thrown, each blow received, fueled his resolve, his determination to break free from the darkness that had consumed him. Yet he was no ordinary prey. Years spent honing his body and mind into a weapon had moulded him into a force of nature. He moved with a ferocity born of desperation and a lifetime spent embracing the shadows. The fight raged until the setting sun cast long grotesque shadows across the ravine, turning the clearing into a macabre tableau. Both were battered, broken, yet driven by an insatiable hunger for victory, but only one could emerge from the darkness. Victory, when it came, was a hollow thing. He stood over the boxer's broken body, the silence of the forest deafening in its finality. He had won, had proven himself the ultimate predator, yet a chilling emptiness gnawed at his soul. The boxer's final words echoed in the stillness. "You are broken." A whisper that cut through the haze of violence, a stark reflection of the truth he had tried so desperately to deny. He had sought to break the strongest, only to discover the emptiness that awaited at the pinnacle of his twisted pursuit. The island, once a sanctuary for his dark desires, now felt like a prison. The lush vegetation, the vibrant life that teemed within its embrace, now mocked him with their innocence, their obliviousness to the darkness he carried within. He had become the serpent in his own Eden, his victory a poisoned chalice, the thrill of the hunt replaced by a soul-crushing emptiness. The island, he realized, had not changed him. It had merely stripped away the pretense, revealing the darkness that had always lurked within. He left the boxer's body where it lay, a silent testament to his folly. He retreated to his lair, the heart of his meticulously crafted kingdom, yet the monitors that once held his attention now flickered with a cold accusing light. He had sought to become a god, to create a world in his own image, but the island had rejected his dominion. It remained a force of nature, indifferent to his ambitions, his victories, his losses. The creatures he had sought to control continued their timeless dance of life and death, oblivious to the darkness he had unleashed. The wind whispered through the trees, a mournful dirge that seemed to carry the island's secrets, its ancient wisdom. He had sought to conquer nature, to bend it to his will, but in the end it was nature that had conquered him. The island would reclaim its own, erasing the evidence of his presence, the bloodstains fading beneath the relentless growth of the forest. But the memory of what he had done, the echo of violence, would linger, a stain on the soul of the island, a reminder that even in paradise darkness can take root and flourish.